This just happened. One of our longtime real estate agent partners reached out to me a couple days ago and said, Kelly, take a look at this pre-qualification form from this other lender. And he's like, is this real? And I said, well, what do you mean, is it real? So he provided a pre-qualification form, which here in Arizona is actually part of the AAR purchase contract. The pre-qualification form becomes an actual form that lenders use to let the real estate agents know at what point the client is in the true home loan pre-qualification process. Well, anyway, this lender has all of the documentation boxes marked no. So no W-2s, no pay stubs, no assets verified, no. And he's worked with us for so long. We do not issue pre-qualification letters with boxes marked no across the board. Like, that's not our practice. We do everything we can to try to get all the documentation because the devil is in the details when it comes to the home loans. And without that documentation, there is not a lender out there that can guarantee that close of escrow. I mean, heck, even with the documentation, there's stuff that happens in the process. But once the lender has that documentation, the income and asset documentation, it is required to get through the home loan process. Even in that situation, there's other weird things that can happen, but it definitely gives you as a real estate agent much more security in knowing that if the lenders receive that documentation and they've already given you the pre-qualification letter post reviewing that documentation, like, that's a good sign. You're heading the right direction. So he calls the lender that issued his buyer, who's not using a different lender. They were pre-qualified with the lender before they found him, the real estate agent. And he called the lender and said, hey, have you received the buyer's documentation? And they said, no, we don't even ask for it or get it until they're under contract. Are you kidding me? A traditional contract might be 30 days. And if you're not getting the documentation until that point, you are drastically not only reducing the lender's time frame of being able to navigate if there is a problem or come up with a strategy to solve the problem, but two, now your buyer's starting to incur cost. Maybe they've already scheduled the home inspection. They're into it at the same time that they're sending the documentation to the lender. So maybe they're out the money before the lender has determined that there's a problem. Like, why would you ever do that? Why would you not just ask for the documentation up front as a lender? I mean, it just makes me crazy. I don't even know what that rule looks like. And please understand that many times we do have buyers that will come to us. Maybe they've already talked to another lender and they tell us the other lender didn't ask us for all this documentation. Why are you asking us for it? We're asking for it because we know that we would greatly reduce the chance of something happening and our ability to not close the loan when we have all the documentation up front. That is just a sheer fact. So the fact that there are lenders out there that are issuing pre-qualification letters without having documentation, they're essentially putting forth kind of like a, maybe this buyer can close escrow, maybe not. As a listing agent, I know you do not want these pre-qualification letters with boxes marked no. And in fact, if we have to issue one because maybe the process is just moving fast and they're getting us the documentation, but we haven't received it yet and they want to write an offer, I guarantee you that in a multiple offer scenario, listing agents are going to look at that pre-qualification form where the boxes are marked yes. Why? Because it gives them, their seller, more assurance that it's likely that that home loan can close. And that's really what it's about. So the fact that this is still going on in this day and age with the complexity of home lending, that we have major lenders out there that are issuing pre-qualification letters without reviewing documentation, just blows my mind. And again, this isn't just a one-off. This is like across the board. This is their practice. It's not like it's because the client that has to hurry and make the offer and then they'll get us their stuff. They do not even request the documentation until the client is under contract. Crazy. Be sure that when you are working with a lender, whether it's us or anybody else, that you're on the same page with regard to what they do and their process. When I say the devil's in the details, especially when it comes to income, I cannot tell you how many scenarios, how many variances there are between what people think they make and what they actually make as documented by their pay stubs, their W-2s, and or their tax returns if they're required for the home loan. So us being able to get in there after we've taken the application, because remember, in that application, it's a verbal process, or it's a process where the buyer is putting in their information. But the reality is that's not the income that's going to be used. The income that's going to be used, if income is required for that home loan, is going to be based on the income documentation. And again, that's where the detail is, and that's where we have to go to ensure a successful close of escrow. If you found value in this video, please subscribe. This stuff gets me fired up, and it's good to know. And if this content matters, and if this content is important to you, and if so, please share it, because we want to get the word out and make sure people do understand that not all lenders are created equal. And if you're working with a lender that hasn't asked you for your documentation, ask if you can send it. Go ahead and just do that. That way you can send it and they can review it. And in that scenario, you can reduce and minimize your risk and not closing your home loan on time. And if you're a real estate agent that's never worked with us, but you want to know a little bit more about what that looks like and what our process is, just click the link below. Let's schedule a 15-minute conversation. We'll fill you in. We'll see if we're compatible, and we'll see where it goes. Thank you so much for watching. We look forward to connecting soon.